So vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin. And we need vitamin K to activate vitamin K-dependent proteins. And in humans, there are 20 different vitamin K-dependent proteins identified by today. And depending on the synthesis location, they are either called hepatic or extrahepatic vitamin K-dependent proteins. So the hepatic vitamin K-dependent proteins are synthesized in the liver and are essential for blood coagulation. And there we have the coagulation factors 2, 7, 9, and 10, and we have the anticoagulation proteins C, S, and Z. And for protein C and S, there are also anti-inflammatory functions discussed. And then we have the extrahepatic vitamin K-dependent proteins. They are outside the liver, and they are mostly known for their protective role in bones and cardiovascular system. So here we have the matrix GLA protein, which is also called MGP. It prevents soft tissue calcification and elastic fiber degradation. And then we have the osteocalcine. It incorporates calcium into the bones. We have the GLA-rich protein, also called GRP, the growth arrest-specific protein 6, GUS6, protein C and S, and for them there are anti-inflammatory functions discussed. So we need vitamin D3 because vitamin D3 induces the production of osteocalcine and MGP. And these are the vitamin K-dependent proteins I just explained. So we need vitamin D3 for the production, and then we need vitamin K2 for the activation of these proteins. I will explain this a bit more in detail during my presentation. So the activated proteins bind then and direct calcium where it is needed. So vitamin K1 is present in vegetables, mainly in green leafy vegetables, and it is basically the main source of vitamin K in our diet. And then we have vitamin K2, and especially MK7. They are found in animal-based products and fermented foods and are produced in small amounts also by bacteria in the gut. The primary role of vitamin K1 is blood coagulation, and they are in the liver. So the main location is in the liver for vitamin K1. K2 has his main role outside the liver with maintaining calcium balance, elastic fiber, elasticity, and it also has an immune modulating role. Another very important difference between vitamin K1 and vitamin K2 is the half-life time. So the half-life time of vitamin K1 is only 1.5 hours, and vitamin K2, we are talking 3 days. The role of vitamin K2 in bone health is to activate osteocalcine. Osteocalcine is a vitamin K-dependent protein, and what you can see here in the picture, UCOC means uncarboxylated osteocalcine, which is the inactive form of osteocalcine. And then we have COC, that is carboxylated osteocalcine, that is the active form of osteocalcine. And to carboxylate osteocalcine, we need an enzyme which is called gamma-glutamyl carboxylase. And this enzyme needs a cofactor that it can do its job. And this cofactor is vitamin K. That's why we say we need vitamin K, K2, to activate the vitamin K-dependent proteins. In this case, when we are talking bone health, it's osteocalcine. And then when osteocalcine is in an activated state, the osteocalcine binds to calcium and transports it from the blood into the bones. And so vitamin D and K2 and calcium, they are acting perfectly together, and therefore we call it the bone health triangle. When we are looking at the fractures versus the non-fracture cases, in the breastfeeding women, the ones with the fractures had a significant lower level of osteocalcine. And there were also, among the fracture cases, the subjects had significantly lower bone mineral density than did the non-fracture cases. And then you can also see a trend that was not significant, but there is a trend of more uncarboxylated osteocalcine with the fractures compared to the non-fracture cases. And that can be interpreted as an increased demand of vitamin K2. So pregnancy and lactation induces significant metabolic changes in the maternal skeleton. And what interesting here is, during pregnancy, the calcium supply to the fetus in week 20 is over 50 milligrams per day. And when we're coming during pregnancy to week around 35, we are talking 330 milligrams per day. During lactation, the supply to the breast milk will be also over 330 milligrams per day. So during the question is, how is this possible? Either the intestinal calcium absorption has to increase to make sure that the fetus has enough calcium supply, or if this doesn't meet the requirements, calcium has to be mobilized from the maternal skeleton by osteoclast activity, which in turn leads to reduced bone mass. So, and that's where basically the potential or the beneficial role of vitamin K2 comes in the picture, to inhibit the osteoclasts and to stimulate the osteoblasts. So K2 supplementation may improve bone health for expecting mothers. So to sum up, the calcium is sufficient for bone building, but calcium alone is insufficient. We need vitamin D to take up calcium from the gut into the bloodstream, and vitamin D enhances the expression of vitamin K-dependent proteins, for example, osteocalcin and MGP. Vitamin K-dependent proteins are uncarboxylated, which means they are in an inactive state, and that's where vitamin K2 comes in the picture. Because vitamin K2 is a cofactor of an enzyme called gamma-glutamyl carboxylase, and carboxylation can then change the structure of these vitamin K-dependent proteins to bind calcium and brings it from the arterial wall into the bones. Now I would like to show you some studies about vitamin K2 in heart health. So what is the role of vitamin K2 in heart health? One of the most important inhibitors of calcification is the protein MGP. So that's the matrix GLA protein, and it's a vitamin K-dependent protein. And this protein also has to be activated by vitamin K before it can do his job. And then when MGP is activated, it contributes to the transport of calcium out of the arterial wall. So vitamin K2 regulates calcium metabolism in the body, and by activating MGP and osteocalcin, like I said, K2 prevents calcium buildup in the vascular system and brings it to our bones instead. So vitamin K2 puts calcium in balance, and it directs free calcium away from the artery and helps bind calcium into the bones. There are coming more and more studies elucidating the role of vitamin K2 for immune, vascular, and respiratory health. And I'm going to walk you a bit through the mechanisms. So if there is an infection, the need for vitamin K may increase. And an infection leads to an upregulation of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It leads to an accelerated elastic fiber degradation, to an increased calcium content of the elastic fibers, and to an upregulation of MGP synthesis. So the situation where more vitamin K is needed to carboxylate MGP may occur, and vitamin K levels outside the liver can be suddenly insufficient. So, which may increase lung problems, for example, and may lead to an imbalance in coagulation. And here is the evidence of vitamin K2 and immune health, or the latest evidence from observational studies. So we have studies in COVID patients, we have studies in patients with inflammatory bowel disease, and we have also studies in healthy young women. And what they all find is that vitamin K deficiency is associated to either higher inflammatory markers, as for example CRP or IL-6, that lower vitamin K or vitamin K deficiency, that it is associated to calprotectin levels or higher calprotectin levels. Calprotectin is an inflammation marker in the gut. It's also related to higher death rates of COVID-19 patients and more severe COVID-19 infections. So that's all what was shown in these studies here. This is a cross-section study also from our collaborators in the US, in Cleveland, Ohio. And they investigated 100 COVID patients and 50 controls. They also looked at vitamin D, DPU-CMGP, and they looked at the severity of COVID-19 disease. And after they adjusted for confounders, the only factors which were associated with severe COVID-19 disease were vitamin D and vitamin K status. This was an overview about the immune studies, what's going on with vitamin K. But there are, because there are so many vitamin K dependent proteins activated by vitamin K, that's why there are also so many health areas where vitamin K may have a function. So we are in Kappa, we got really interested also in mental health benefits of vitamin K2, and that's why I would like to show you a study which is still running in Parkinson patients and give you some rationale why we think this may have an effect. So this is our Parkinson trial. It's carried out at the University Medical Center in Lübeck in Germany. And the aim here is to investigate the effect of vitamin K2 on brain activity in Parkinson patients. We have pilot data, which means that's usually like a very small study, where in Parkinson patients where they got vitamin K2 and where they looked or where they saw an increase in ATP levels. And that's why we got really interested in that and started this Parkinson study to see if vitamin K2 may have an effect to increase ATP levels. And why this is of relevance, I will show you on the next slide. It may look very difficult, but no worries, I will talk you through this. So what you see these molecular structures to the left. So menaconines, that's just another word for vitamin K2. And menaconines, they are in structure very similar to CoQ10, also called ubiquinone. And most of the ATP, so ATP is basically the energy in our body, generates in the citric cycle in mitochondria, in the cells. And what you can see here, you see this little Q between complex 1 and 3, and that's CoQ10. And yes, CoQ10 is located between complex 1 and 3 in the mitochondrial wall and transports electrons from complex 1 to 3, which produces energy. That's basically what it does. And the hypothesis is here that vitamin K2 may have similar functions as CoQ10 because of these very similar molecular structures, to have a supportive and a regular role on the energy metabolism. And that's also the background why we got interested into mental health. You can see here data from the data on top there. They are from Drosophila, like fruit flies, where they saw that K2 increases ATP production, and the same on the bottom. These are cell line studies where they also saw that K2 increases ATP production. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm delighted to answer questions. Thank you.